Hey guys, this is Lurkin here from Obolytics. This is Chain Lightning Emperor Palpatine. My little tickle fingers, Chain Lightning, it's doing pretty good right now, but this is basically an Azurewrath build. Lucky hit chance to deal X cold damage, utilizing Fists of Fate with a lot of lucky hit chance to get a lot of cold damage procs. We have some extra damage thrown in with Axial Conduits and lucky hit chance to deal lightning damage down here on the focus. Check it out on Mobalytics. It's on the tier list. So let's talk about the setup that I ran for that pit there. So I ran Perdition for damage, and it solves a lot of my crit chance concerns. How you masterwork is it dependent on, you know, the rest of your gear, your GAs, and your masterworks there, but just try to get 100% crit chance. 60% damage helm, it's very nice, but our cooldowns suffer, but this build's okay with low cooldown. Shroud of False Death is a absolute stat stick with +1 to all passives. It gives us a lot of damage. The all stats and the max life are great. Your masterworks, any combination of all stats and max life. Next is Fist of Fate. Most important thing is the 300% damage aspect and the lucky hit chance. The lucky hit chance enables the entire build through these Azurewrath procs of cold damage. If you don't have a good Fist of Fate, I advise using Frostburns. If you hit enemies with a fireball, they will be burning, and you will then deal 35% more cold damage to them. No interaction with Enlightenment, but this has some really amazing fixes in attack speed, fire and cold damage, which boosts Enlightenment, and these 2 lucky hit procs. You know, you might be able to make a case that Frostburns are as good as Fist of Fate, but I think we go with Fists. Axial Conduit, you care about the aspect value, want it as high as possible, but this chance for Chain Lightning to hit twice is amazing, because when things hit twice, they lucky hit twice, a chance to, so that's good for Azurewrath procs. And then Resource Gen is important. Your boots are just in life armor, just how you get your armor there, above that in combination with your skulls. And then just evade cooldown reduction, and our Orange Herald is there to reduce our ultimate skill with our lucky hits. As you can see, we have 44 seconds here, and I don't really have an issue keeping it up. Azurewrath, big dick damage here, lucky hit, 40% chance to deal cold damage. This can get upwards of 18,500, something like that. Applies chill to freeze enemies vulnerable. It's just a great sword. It's carrying a lot of core skill builds this season, specifically Ice Shards, Chain Lightning, and Charge Bolts. We have a focus here. Int cooldown. Most important thing here actually is this lucky hit chance to restore resource, which is very difficult to enchant. Might cost you a little bit. It's a non-priority. And then you're going to want... I think the build guide will have critical strike damage, but I was messing around with cold damage to increase Enlightenment or get more value out of Azurewrath, but I think crit damage is just fine. But there are 2 offensive Surge Tempers, Night and Day. So Night contains cold, poison, and shadow, and that one's a 1 in 3 chance to get a cold damage value. And then there's Day, which is the one I recommend masterworking. It's lightning, fire, and physical, and take the highest value of lightning or fire that you can get. And then you're going to want to masterwork that, but good luck tripling it. I wouldn't worry too much about it. You're most concerned about tripling Azurewrath. The Ring of Starless Skies. This is sort of based on your attack speed, your Fist of Fate, or your Frostburns that you're running, how much attack speed you need to not go over the 100% cap, and then how much crit chance you need, but lucky hit chance is also always good. So, the Starless is pretty flexible. It doesn't really need to be triple crit anywhere, and just any combination of attack speed, crit chance, and lucky hit chance is typically fine. Tal Rasha, prioritize cooldown, but it's not that important. Like, any combination of cooldown and non-fizz is totally fine, and you're going to want a 25% one. No matter what the values are on anything else, no matter what GA, you're going to want like a 24.3 or a 25% one, even if it's a 750. One thing to note on the cooldown, it's not that important because of the lucky hit chance with the Orange Herald and the Unstable Currents, getting it back so frequently, but with the Shimmering Ice Armor, we spend so much mana that we have a permanent Ice Armor. So cooldown, the fact that this Ice Armor has a 13-second cooldown doesn't matter. Next, we're going to our amulet. Your amulet should be Int, Inner Flames, Permafrost. We're not taking Glass Cannon because sometimes we run Raiment of the Infinite, and then Inner Flames and Permafrost are better because of diminishing returns. You're going to want to, just prioritize hitting either your Permafrost or your Inner Flames. My amulet's kind of mid, and I just don't care. I'm not getting anyone. And then you would... Imprint, evade cooldown reduction, and critical strike damage. Our offense, we only have 2 slots for offensive aspects, and that is Aspect of Elements, 53% damage. When it's on Fire and Lightning, we get 53% times 53%. We get it twice when Enlightenment's active. When it's on Cold, we just get 53% damage. It's a ton. It's boosting us a lot. And then Stormswell here, 35% when Ice Armor's active. we always have ice armor, and then more damage against frozen enemies, freezing everything with Azurewrath, so it's perfect. And then if you're running Shaco, cooldown reduction is the most important, and then if you're running Raiment, Glass Cannon is the most important. Alright, so let's talk about runes. So, the crux of the build is Pock Quacks. Spend 400% of your max resource, deal double damage for a second. Not going to go into this too much, but you're spending a lot of resource on this build. This is going off a ton. It's great. When I'm running Shroud of False Death, I like Ahu and Cry. We have so much, we're dealing a lot of lucky hits, and we're getting these massive Spiritborn Vortex Cries, these pulls that go off every 3 seconds. So it's dollar store raiment, and I just really enjoy it. I found the pulls very beneficial. And then when you're running raiment, you don't need the pulls anymore. So Nagu Ohm is a pretty standard setup for any build that makes a lot of conjurations to get 15% damage all the time out of Barb's Warcry. And then when you're leveling early, or if you're having resource problems, Lum is amazing, especially with Pock. Basically half of the resource that you spend will come back to you. It's amazing. And then Gar always to make up crit chance, because you don't have a lot when you're starting off. One thing we need to talk about is attack speed scaling and surge tempers / affixes. So when you look at things like lucky hit chance to deal fire damage, cold damage on Frostburn, the lucky hit cold damage on Azurewrath, or a weapon temper, lucky hit chance to deal lightning damage on your focus. These all scale with attack speed. What I mean by that is you see how this has a value of 3,500. If you have 100% attack speed, it will be 100% more, so 7,000. If you have 50% attack speed, it will be 50% more, so like 5,200. Things like pyromancy attack speed or basic attack speed don't work. And then you may ask, oh, does that apply to Axial Conduit? No, it does not. What this attack speed scaling applies to are affixes and tempers that are flat damage values, not aspect values. This chain lightning, this 3,600 damage here, this is like an aspect value. This scales off chain lightning ranks, so it will not get any attack speed scaling. So, you know, you get 10 ranks in chain lightning and it doubles. I think they sort of, we thought it was a bug, but I think at this point, I think it was intentional. Because, you know, if these things are going to have rank scaling, these need some form of scaling too to compete and keep up, so they have attack speed scaling. So attack speed is very important, so you should definitely hit the 100% attack speed cap, and then you get an extra 25% from Unstable Currents. Alright, so I'm in the Perdition and Shroud, like sort of comfy pit variant, so let's talk about boss powers. Beast in the Ice Sleets is becoming very standard on Sorcerer. It's got a lot of damage, Enlightenment boosts it up a ton, and it applies a metric ton of stagger to bosses. And then Cinerat's Flames, when you can take it, you always take it. It's 95% damage because it's 1.25x damage cubed, because our non-physicals are tripling. When Enlightenment is active, they're applying 3 times. It's very strong. And I am in the Perdition and the Shroud kind of comfy variant, so what I opt for is Harbinger here for 30% vulnerable damage, and then I'm running the Blisters because they help me kill the bosses faster, and they're pretty good on the elites. So you have options here because you have a crowd control, because you have the ability to do a crowd control duration temper on your boots instead of like a lucky hit utility temper. Flesh Reapers is an option over the Blisters if you just don't like them. I got 15% damage and my boots aren't even masterworked. I don't have any crits on CC duration, so you can easily get this to 20. But some of the speed farm variants or some of the raiment variants really like Kirma's here for 30% evade cooldown reduction for those one attack teleports. As soon as you get your teleport to around 1.7, your teleport evade to around 1.7, that's when you really start to lock in, and that's mainly with Harlequin Crest. But other options are Hatred's Embrace for crit chance, mainly Shaco variants that are missing it. So, you know, Beast in the Ice Sleets and Cinerats are the core, and then you have some flex options here, and yeah. Alright, so we start with our skill tree, so let's talk about it. 2 points in a basic just to progress, doesn't matter. We take 3 points here to get to Greater Fireball so that we can cast it with alternating with Chain Lightnings to stack up Enlightenment, and then we can execute non-boss enemies when they're below 25% by plopping them with it. We max out Chain Lightning, go for Greater Chain Lightning. I believe this works for Axial Conduit to give it 30% more damage, but I'm pretty sure Elemental Dominance does not, so we don't take it. 1 point in Flame Shield, and then we have 4 in Teleport, and then we're reaching for the Shimmering Teleport DR node for 30% DR. We just rush here to Shimmering Ice Armor. So when Ice Armor is active, for every 50 mana we spend, it reduces its cooldown by 1 second. Chain Lightning spends a ton of mana, so your Ice Armor is up permanently. Your cooldown of it doesn't really matter. We're casting, we get 1 to 2 to 3 Ice Blades out, so we're getting more attack speed out of it. And then we're going for protection here so that we get barriers when we use our cooldowns. We're going for Invoked Lightning Spear so that the spears made during Unstable Currents will stagger bosses. Invoked Familiar here so that when we do make familiars, which we will make Lightning Familiars during Unstable Currents by evading. They will eventually be made. We'll deal 10% more shock damage. And then when we're casting Ice Blades, we will make Frost Familiars, so we'll get 10% more damage with Azurewrath. So, we take 3 points in Primordial Binding, mainly for the mana regen and the movement speed. We don't care about the summon damage. You have 10 spears out. That's 160% mana regen. And that's sort of why you don't need Elemental Acuity anymore, because you just get so much from that. 3 points in Mana Shield. I'm getting +1 to all passives because of Shroud, but this gives us 40% DR. Here we're after Inner Flames for this 24% damage while healthy. I take a single point in Static Discharge and 1 point in Invigorating Conduit, showing us 2 because of Shroud. I really only need 1 and 1 to generate mana, to generate enough Crackling and then get a little bit of mana back from it. You don't need to go super crazy on here in the endgame setups. Just 1 and 1 is fine. Every build will max out these Frost passives for damage to Frozen, damage while a Frost skill is on your action bar, and damage to Vulnerable. Again, Elemental Synergies, just more damage with all your elements. You'll have some shock skills on the bar, so you get shock damage, and then a couple Frost skills on the bar, so you get some cold damage there. But actually, this wouldn't affect Azurewrath at all, but it's going to probably affect Axial Conduit and our Chain Lightning damage, so it's still important to take. Yeah, because that's just skills. Azurewrath is not a Frost skill. It's cold damage. Evocation for cooldown reduction, and then we just take 1 point on Unstable Currents. We're after the attack speed here. We don't give a shit about Supreme. That does nothing. And then 1 point here just to progress to Convulsion so that we can get 20% damage when we have Crackling Energy. So, Enlightenment. This is our main key passive, and let's talk about exactly how it's stacked up and how our Paragon and our enchantments deal it. So, as you know, with Enlightenment, you cast alternating skills. You stack up to 100 stacks. Then for 10 seconds, you deal a boatload more damage. In the past, we saw around 75 to 100% damage, but right now it's like 600% to 1,000% damage. So 6x, 7x to 10x damage, etc. There's a lot of really good ways to juice it up right now. And one of those is the Familiar Enchantment. So why Familiar Enchantment? So Familiar Enchantment counts as a Frost, Fire, and Cold skill when it's on your enchantment slot. So we have 2 Lightning enchantments, and we have a Frost and a Fire. And why does that matter? Because when we go to the Enchantment Master Legendary node, enchantments are 30% stronger, faster teleports, but we get 40% increased damage. Enchantments grant 40% more damage with their main element, 20% increased damage for the second enchantment if it's the same element. So TLDR, you are getting 1.6x damage with lightning, 1.4 with cold, and 1.4 with fire. And because Enlightenment combines all 3 of your fire, cold, lightning bonuses, you get all of these multipliers at once. So that's sort of why Familiar Enchantment is taken on every Enlightenment build right now. You don't really have a choice. It's Teleport Familiar. Sorry, Ice Blades. You had a good run. Okay, let's talk about our glyphs and then our legendary nodes. So, Destruction is taken for a large amount of crit damage. Elementalist provides a ton of damage, and it's got this increased non-physical. Anytime you see non-phys X, that is triple dipping when Enlightenment is active. So that's why we take Warding, despite it having a throw additional bonus that we don't really care about. And then Flame Feeder here, even though we don't really care about our damage to burning targets. It's just we're after these increased non-physical. And then your last glyph is basically a choice between, say, Unleash or Tactician. Whatever you have leveled, either is fine. Unleash has some nice mana regen, and then Tactician gives us a lot of damage after we use it defensive. So I start off with Warding. And Tactician can also replace Warding. It's totally okay. Then we move into Static Surge. So we permanently have a 50% damage buff from this, and then we're hitting enemies with shock skills so often that every second we're restoring 30% of our max mana. I put Flame Feeder here, just minimum, just to pass through. Elementalist goes here, boosts up our non-fizz, very nice. And as I've already discussed, the Enchantment Master Legendary node is incredibly strong this season with the Familiar Enchant. We are moving on to Frigid Fate. I like Frigid Fate because it has lucky hit chance. It's got some max life, and then I put Unleash here, boosts up my magic nodes for some willpower and dex, and Frigid Fate is just an easy 1.6x damage that you always have. Everything's always vulnerable, you always get it. Last but not least is Ceaseless Conduit. Ceaseless can get 74 dex that I can't reach right now. That would be 500% crit strike additive, and these huge massive multis, some nice lightning damage too. We path down here, we grab this crit chance, there's damage reduction, there's some max life over here, max lightning res. It's just a pretty good board. And then I take Ceaseless Conduit, we make a ton of crackling energy with just the 1 point in static discharge, and then we get our 60% damage all the time. It's a good board. I'd say the mainstays that most people would have leveled are Destruction, Elementalist, and Flame Feeder. These three definitely, and then sort of a pick 3 of Warding, Unleash, and Tactician. If you don't want to level up Warding, you don't really have to. Like if you already have Tactician and Unleash, like at 100, just run those two. It's okay.